Hey everyone, welcome back to the workshop. It is getting towards the end of summer. We're rolling into fall. That means it's back to school season. Some kids are already in school. Colleges are starting up soon. So this is a good time to maybe think about some products you can use to help out teachers or work with some clubs and organizations or send kids off to college. There's a lot of opportunity to help out these organizations and or maybe do some business to business with these schools and their related entities. So education's big for me. Both my mom and my grandma were public school teachers. I have worked in a local community college for the past 25 years. And so xTool reached out to me and said, hey, if we send some materials out, do you want to do some back to school things? And since education is really near and dear to me, I said, why not? So we're going to jump into looking some of the materials that they sent over and see how they worked with a variety of their machines and maybe give you some ideas for back to school season as well. So if that's something you're interested in, want to find out more, stay tuned. I'm going to jump right into it. So if you go out to the xTool site, of course, you can buy all of their machines and accessories for that, but they also do have a fairly extensive materials offering. And the nice thing is, especially if you're using their lasers, they do offer some pretty good material settings for all the various lasers in there. And you can actually go onto their website and kind of browse to take a look at which ones will work with others before you buy the material. So we're going to be working through a number of those. We're going to be using basically their recommended settings to see how they all come out. So let's jump right into the various projects. So of course, it wouldn't be back to school and lasers without customizing some pencils. And this is definitely a popular thing. A lot of people like it. It's a way to maybe personalize some items for teachers, maybe mark the kids down with their pencils, make them feel a little special. And so this is something that's easy to do. However, my tip on that is you're going to want a fixture or jig to help hold these in place and make reloading them very quickly. You can, of course, make one depending on the laser you have, but if you're working with the xTool F1 or the F1 Ultra, you may want to check out Samcraft. He makes a number of these 3D printed jigs, and this happens to be the universal pen jig, but he has a whole series on the xTool F1 and the xTool F1 Ultra that you can drop in, and then he's got the XCS, the xTool Creative Space templates ready for you, just a little bit of dialing in and you'll be ready to go. I did do a video on some of these already. You can check that out. I'll have a link to it, but we are going to be working with this universal pen jig. I don't have one of his pencil jigs. He does make them. We're going to drop this into the F1 to be able to line up our pencils. So usually I tell you to do a material test, but on a pencil, it's pretty hard to do that. So I'll show up on the screen here some settings I did on one pencil. I just took some text and started adjusting the power settings. What I did do though was start with the pine settings from xTool in XCS, and that kind of got me in the area I wanted. So then I just started adjusting the power, kind of went from down as low as 45 all the way up to I think 85 to 100, just to see where we would land. And every pencil is going to be slightly different, so you're going to want to do some playing yourself. After doing that, went ahead and loaded up the jig and went ahead and etched these out. So all these came out fairly well. The one was slightly off, and so that might just mean I need to go back in and tweak my settings on the alignment there. As I was using the universal jig instead of the F1 pencil jig, I had to make that manual adjustment. If you use his jig and use his alignment stuff, they should be within about 1 millimeter. But anyway, went ahead and engraved some fictional teachers' names, so extra credit if you can recognize all of those. And went ahead and engraved those. It's a very fast thing to do, so if you wanted to crank out a box of 50 on these, I think these took about 4 to 5 seconds per pencil. Doing them in batches of about 6 or 7, you're gonna be able to do that in just a couple minutes. And moving on from there, xTool did also send out some rubber stamp material in their kits, and their kits do come with a couple of handles and parts to make a couple stamps. There's a round one that's roughly 1 inch in diameter, and then there is kind of a rectangular one. I think it was 30 by 40 millimeters. And so you can play around with those, but I also went ahead and designed my own stamp handle for round ones to be able to kind of make some custom shapes as well. So we might go into this in a later video, but this was easily cut out on the S1 40 watt out of some Baltic birch. And then the trick with any sort of stamp, They include some double-sided foam backers to adhere the rubber to the handle. If you're making your own, you're going to want to get some of your own foam. You don't want to have the rubber straight to the wood. You want just a little bit of cushion and flexibility there. So I use some EVA foam on that, but went ahead and did this on the S1 and ended up doing 3 passes on the rubber to do the engraving, and then ran and had to do about 5 passes on the cut to make sure we got a clean cut. The rubber does cut through, but it is a bit dense material, and so you're going to want to take your time. I did do some testing on the original F1 with this, and while it engraves the rubber fine, really has a hard time cutting without that air assist, and you get a lot more flames. So for me, doing these on the S1 worked really well. The P2 would probably also work very well as far as engraving and making those work out. The other trick on these is if you're using any text or images that you want to have oriented right, you do need to kind of flip them. So horizontally, you want it reversed so that when you stamp it, it's going to show up right. So went ahead and did that. I kind of made, I found actually within xTool Creative Space, they do have their kind of online library where you have some premium ones and some users give some away. This gentleman had given away the design. This one says, "Excellent work, teacher award," and they have both male and female, so this is kind of a cool stamp for teachers. And I went ahead and just designed one that says "Great job" and has a star on that. So they give you some ink pads, a black and a red one, or you can go to your local craft store and grab some more. And then you can go ahead and hit the stamp on there. So went ahead and ran some test stamps on just some white paper to make sure they were working, and they did seem to be coming out pretty well. So this may be a little more old school, but you know, if your kid's writing a paper, sometimes the teachers like to give a nice little stamp on there. So, you know, they can write out their homework and the teacher can have a few different designs to add a little extra touch to it. And so that's the Great Job one on there. And if you want to pause this and read through my story of what I want to be when I grow up, you might get a good chuckle. So another very popular material to work with is the synthetic leather, and they do have a variety of different options in that. One of them that I was playing with are these round patches. So they come kind of pre-cut. They have kind of some fake stitching on them as well. And then they have this 3M adhesive on the back. The nice thing about these is you can make them with some designs, and people can adhere them at home. So it is sticky back, but it is helpful to have heat activated. So you want to give them some instructions to heat them up with an iron for about 30 seconds to seal them down. But these are things that could go on backpacks, on jackets, on hats and such, but you don't have to do the customization yourself. You could just make them for the organization. So the nice thing that xTool does is they have their settings that you can download either in through the application or you can browse on the web, but they also give you kind of a scrap piece for each of your materials, and you can do their test array on here. And so I did run this, and this was on the xTool F1, just using that 10-watt blue diode, and it was looking pretty good in that 1500 to 2000 range, somewhere from 75 on up to 100% power, depending on the speed. And then went ahead and rolled with the design. So a lot of schools will have their mascot and their name, and you then could customize it. So in this case, I've got the Gotham City Blue Jays and the football team. You could even go so far as to leave some space and maybe have a jersey number, maybe the person's name. They could put this on their sports bag. They could put this on their backpack, patch on the side of a jacket, whatever. These are very nice that you can make them and let the user apply them, or you could upsell it and put them on things yourself. But something to think about. Now, when you're doing school logos, you do want to check with them. Some of them may have them copyrighted, and you want to make sure you have you know, the permission to use them. A lot of colleges and high schools might have foundations or PTO organizations and such, and so maybe if you work with them and work with some fundraisers, they'll be much more happier to allow you to use their logos. But always try to get permission but do think about some of those sports teams, the various booster organizations. They're always looking for fundraisers and inexpensive ways to be able to authorize some customized items to help support their programs within schools. So another cool item that they offer out on the xTool website is they have these synthetic leather, they're kind of like magnetic bookmarks. And so they're double-sided, they've got magnets in there, and they fold over on themselves so they can mark the pages without hurting things. And then both sides are engravable. And then for each color, they give you a little swatch to do some tests on. So here they have this card in here, and the QR code will kind of take you to some of their material codes and where you can look them up. And then they also, on each of their items, they will have a product ID. So like on this one, it's PU031. So you can type that into your search and go find the settings for that. A lot of times the different colors and things will have different settings based on the laser you're using. So it's really nice that they put the effort in to bring these settings out for us to get us really close in the ballpark with them. So using those settings, I went ahead and used the little swatches on a couple of these, and this was kind of double duty. It was to make sure that the settings would work to get the engraving. So as you see, this one is kind of that beige tan and it engraves black, whereas this one's black and has a silver kind of layer underneath. If you go too heavy, you're gonna go all the way through that to kind of the felt backing, and then it's gonna look black again and be kind of rough. So you do wanna take careful note of these settings, but I also would recommend you use these to kind of test your engraving. So if we can look at this one, the first top one, it actually says the influence of a teacher can never be erased, but the text really got lost at this size, and that was about as big as I felt I could go on the inside of that little magnet thing. So went ahead and just swapped that out to one that looked a little bit better, easier to read. It just says Teacher Life. So use these not only to test your settings, make sure you're getting the right engraving, but maybe to test your graphic as well. And went ahead and engraved that on each one of these. So here we have the tan one with Teacher Life, and as you see, this just folds over, and so that would, they're pretty strong that they would hold through some pages. So makes for a nice kind of little upscaled bookmark. And then here is the other one. This one, probably a little tough on the design there, but definitely something to do a little playing with and test out maybe on some scrap material before you commit to these. And then of course, back to school, like I mentioned earlier, I work at a college. Our college kids are coming back soon. Oftentimes they need some notebooks, and sometimes they don't want just the old spiral bound ones. So they do have these kind of synthetic leather bound books. And again, it has a product ID you can look up, and they give you a small swatch to test with. And then you can just look that up off the QR code on there. And so these are kind of nice. They're definitely customizable for anyone from college students to teachers to administrators. There's a whole wide area that you could use these, not to mention outside of school. There's a lot of professional people that would love to have maybe their company logo on there. Went ahead, grabbed the settings off of xTool's site and did a quick test to make sure that it was going to come out clean. Part of this is making sure the line density is good, because you can sometimes get little lines in there, but went ahead with the blue diode on the F1 Ultra this time, used the camera, and the nice thing there is they have the framing function that you can use both in an outline, so it's going to just kind of show the outline of the graphic, or the bounds, which is the overall dimensions, will be a nice square. Kind of use both of them to kind of dial in my alignment, make sure it's square, make sure it's looking right, and if you have kind of a round or an oblong shape, using that outline really helps dial it in. But went ahead with their recommended settings, and this, no joke, was done in 19 seconds, and I didn't have to do any cleanup with this one. Just came out nice and clean. On some of the others, like these patches, sometimes you have a little blue left over. LA Awesome is great. You just get it on a little bit of like a terry cloth or something, spray it down, wipe it off, and it cleans up nicely, and it's non-abrasive, so it should not leave any residue or anything. So on some of these colors and some of the lasers, you might have a little bit of cleanup. But on the F1 Ultra, this came out super nice, super crisp, super clean, 19 seconds. So if I was going to do a number of these, I would probably set up, use the little corner block that they have with the laser so that I could slide this in nice and square. You could crank through a number of these really quickly. So I think the upsell on these with the F1 Ultra would be a great deal. And of course, acrylic is something people love to play around with, but sometimes struggle with. And so xTool does have a variety of them. So here's a couple. These are cast acrylic. And one little tip, I will only remove the backing usually from the top and leave it on the back, depending on what I'm doing. And I'll just kind of lightly score it so that it stays protected. Otherwise, as you're moving these around and maybe stacking them back up, you're gonna get little scratches on there. But again, they have the product codes, and this is something that if you're using a blue diode laser, certain colors are gonna vary. You're gonna find that yellow might cut slower than red. Black's definitely gonna be your best bet, and your transparents or your clears are gonna struggle if have any effect at all. So ideally with these, you're gonna be using the xTool P2 CO2 laser. That is gonna be very consistent in the cut. It's gonna be faster in the cut, and it's gonna actually have a better cut quality. However, the downfall is that the engraving might not be as nice, but definitely consider the xTool P2 as far as a CO2 laser that you wanna work with. But look at their listing, look online, check theirs. If you're working with a blue diode laser, a number of these colors will work just with the right settings. So I went ahead with the yellow and the red and played around with a couple designs. One super simple, easy one would be to take maybe a school's logo or their mascot and engrave it and then cut it out. So this actually happens to be my high school from many years ago. And so that's the Mankato West Scarlets logo, so I get that to focus. We went ahead and did this on the xTool S1 40 watt, did the engraving, and again, used xTool's recommended settings on there, and they came out pretty well. Now, it's a little pink instead of white. A bright white would be nice. Usually a UV laser would work well. Sometimes IR, depending on the color and the type of acrylic, will also give a nice bright contrast. I find with CO2 and blue diodes, it's a little hit or miss. You might get a little more of a muted contrast, but it did come out pretty nice. We had the M and the W and the scarlets there in the middle. I can make sure this is focusing on that. But one thing you'll notice is that the cut quality is going to vary. So some of the tricks that you want to do, if you're using the automatic air assist on there, you're going to want to turn that down to low. Sometimes when the laser is cutting through acrylic, that air assist is too high, it actually is going to cause kind of streaking, and it's going to cool too fast. You kind of want that flame effect from the beam to kind of polish it, and the air assist being up too high will interfere with making a clean cut. So something to consider on any of the lasers, CO2, diode, or whatnot, dial down your air assist on cutting. I know it's a little counterintuitive. Sometimes you can use a little bit of flame polish, depends on your design. You do want to be careful that it just hits the edge, but that will help kind of just reflash it and clean it up. I didn't do that to this one, but it is something you can look at to see if you can polish that up. Basically just a simple design. I took the logo, cleaned it up with some node editing, and then used the outline tool to give me the outline, then merged in a little hoop for the keychain. So you'll have to get your own little keychain deals. There's all sorts of designs. This one happens to be kind of just that little bead and lock one. I'll show you a couple other designs with the next. So the other very popular thing, of course, is customized like bag tags on backpacks or keychains. And using the acrylic, you can layer it up. And so my wife, as a kid, I don't know what's with the name Carla, but she could never find personalized items. And so, you know, this is an opportunity to help out some of those people that never seem to find their name on any of the customized ones. But went ahead and cut out the yellow on the words. So some tips here. If you can use a font that is a little more of a script, flows together, that's gonna be great. And then you're gonna wanna adjust the horizontal spacing, bring them together just so that they will overlap enough, and then use your weld tool to join them. That makes it much easier on putting these in place. And then you just simply do an offset to bring the outer lines out further. Bring it out maybe about 1/8 inch or so, and make that your backer. So this is just kind of a layered effect on these. Another style keychain, these are kind of nice so that they don't get twisted up. It's a little bit easier on the latch here. But again, if I can show you there, the diode laser gives just a little bit of a rough cut on there. Now this one is done on a CO2. You can kind of see if I can get that in here. I'm gonna see if I can just lay these next to each other. You can kind of see the differences there. The CO2 one's nice and polished, whereas it's kind of a little bit more rough on the diode. So again, play with your settings, play with your speed and your air. You can probably get this one looking a little bit cleaner. Now, as far as layering these up, wouldn't be fair for me not to talk about adhesives. When using acrylic, if you want a nice bond, weld on is your glue of choice. So it comes in a little can. and it comes with a little bottle with a thin applicator. What you want to do is get these lined up. Make sure they're in alignment. If you need to use some tape or something to hold them in place, great. But then you want to wick in that weld on just around the edge, and then the capillary action will kind of pull it in between the two, and it basically welds them together. It makes a kind of a chemical reaction to fuse the two together, and it won't leave a lot of residue unless you get too sloppy with it. So you use that real fine applicator, just go right along the edge and let it wick in. Be ready to clean up anything extra, because if you leave a little pool on there, it is going to soften that acrylic a little bit until it hardens back up. But that is kind of the best way to join acrylic, is using that weld on, and it'll make it nice and fast. It works within seconds, really cures within a minute to three, and so you don't really have to sit around waiting for it. So that is my tip for working with acrylic and having some fun with these layered name tags, name badges. Put them on backpacks or keychains, things like that. So that was just a few fun kind of back to school related projects that I thought I'd share. And just also the resource of checking out xTool's material site. The fact that they have tested them with all their lasers and they're giving you the settings, generally is gonna mean you're probably gonna waste less material, and you'll be kind of getting a consistent thing. So definitely check them out and see if there's something that you might be able to use there. I will have links to all the machines and a lot of these materials down below. Always appreciate you checking those out. And if you have any questions about them, go ahead and hit me up in the comments below. Hopefully you've had a good summer and you're rolling into fall. If you have kids, I hope they are having a great time getting ready back for school, and I hope it's a successful year for everyone. So thanks for watching this one. Hit that like button on the way out. If you're new here, consider hitting that subscribe button, and we'll be back again soon with another project video, tutorial video, or machine review very soon. But in the meantime, I hope you can get out into your workshop and make something too. We'll catch you next time.